shoot.
So you mentioned a little bit about what Dennis was doing. He was drinking a lot, obviously. He was drinking, I know his MO at this time was drinking and cocaine. Is that pretty much what he was doing?
That was breakfast. As I say, I don't even know what a lot of this stuff was. But the thing is, it was controlled to the extent that whenever we started shooting, Dennis would really snap into character. He was always, no matter how, whatever mental state he was in, he knew we were making a movie and he knew what the scene was. And I asked him about it, sort of in the middle of the shoot, because I noticed that his continuity was always really good, believe it or not. And he said, oh yeah, that's my Warner Brothers training. I was a contract player when I was 18, and we were drilled, and they really trained them. They don't train actors like that anymore, so he was almost robotic, technically, which was great.
Now, you've worked with a lot of actors. Where does Dennis rank among those actors? Would you work with him again?
Absolutely, yeah. Second. He was up there with Chris Walken for me and Alan Arkin.
A very good professional actor, despite everything else. Now, do you think he decided that because he's playing this wild man, this wild bush ranger, that he really needed to go a little bit more berserk, or do you think that was just sort of incidental to his life at the time?
All of the above. But with this additional thing that Dennis told me a story about working with James Dean, which I think is worth relating. He was very close to James Dean. He was in 2 of his films, and James Dean was a bit older than Dennis, I think 3 years older. And Dennis had been doing Shakespeare believe it or not, in San Diego, very conventional acting Shakespeare. And he said that when he got on the set, I think it was Rebel Without a Cause was the first film they did together, and he saw James Dean acting, he couldn't understand what he was doing. It was like mesmerizing, sort of stopped him acting. Anyway, they became very good friends, and James Dean introduced him to smoking pot, which was extremely dangerous thing to do. 1953 on the studio, Dennis told me that they used to get shopping bags. They were so paranoid about the smoke getting out of the dressing room, they'd put shopping bags over their heads and smoke the pot in the shopping bag, which of course would make you completely smashed. I mean, they were just and then they were worried about the smell on their breath, so they mouthwash with Pine-A-Clean, the floor.
Fine salt, yeah.
And but the interesting thing is, and you'll see this yourself, once you know that story and you look at Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean is stoned, and everyone else is like early 1950s. He just looks so different. He's mesmerizing, and we hadn't seen that before. So I think there was a bit of chemical acting, and actors always talk about being in the moment. Well, being out of it is really being in the moment, in many ways. And I think a lot of actors were doing it at that time. I mean, Robert Mitchum is another credible example of an actor who was, in the moment.
And stoned a lot.
That's what he said. That's what he said, at least.
So, Dennis Hopper's only one part of this film, this amazing film. When you look back at this film, it was an early film that you made. It was quick. It was low budget. It was rough. What do you think of this film when you see it now, having made so many other films?
I really like it because it was was made in a kind of naive way, not naive bad, but just fast, raw. My cameraman was fantastic. He had just been the operator on Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon. So he was fantastic. And all the Australian actors were great. There was no Australian film industry at that time, and it was a catering. We would, you know, cook a whole sheep for lunch, basically. So it was all very raw. It was a lot of fun. And no, I look back on this movie with great affection.
One thing I noticed about this film, does it have a radio on? What the hell is that?
I think it's picking up a bar close by.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Mics too.
Okay, let's shut down all the other bars close by. Can you do that right now?
I wish. That
Okay.
was so bad.
Okay, all right, yes. I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Shooting in Australia was like probably nothing else I'm going to guess.
Well, the interesting thing, it's not that interesting in the Australian film industry, but there were 4 films made that same year. Picnic and Hanging Rock, The Devil's Playground, Fred Skepsi's movie, a movie called Caddy, and Mad Dog Morgan, and they were shown at Cannes that year, and that really started that whole Australian wave. And none of us knew each other. It was really just a spontaneous combustion.
There's one scene that I think I was going to ask about. Is there's a really dangerous stunt that went wrong in this film. It's a dangerous stunt, man. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I believe Grant Page was on fire, and he was on fire for a little bit too long.
Yeah. Well, he was okay. He went, you know, but the stuntman signals when to put the stunt out, and something went slightly wrong, and he fell on Dennis on fire. And Dennis got out of there really fast, but the problem was they were on the edge of a cliff. And so it was very, very dangerous. It freaked me out about stunts forever, actually. And in fact, when I went years later to Prague to make Howling 2, I asked the locals there, how do you do fire stunts? Because of that Mad Dog thing. And they said, oh, it's really easy. We just did a lot of fire stunts with the Russians. We just did the Battle of Stalingrad. And I said, well, how do you do the fire stunts? And they said, well, we'll demonstrate. They got this guy out, about 4 buckets of water. They poured gas on him and lit him. And he was screaming and had to be taken to hospital. And so then I got stuntmen in from London. So it's the worst part of film directing, this safety issue. It really is bad, and but thankfully no one got hurt on Mad Dog.
Well, I think a lot of brains are going to get injured when they watch Dennis Hopper's performance. Don't try to keep up with him. I mean, we'll bring you drinks, but do not try to hang in there, because you'll never make it. It's a professional at work. And again, you've talked to Dennis fairly recently, and you say he's doing a lot better. We've heard a lot about his bad health, but you said that he's doing a lot better.
Yeah, he said that he's doing a lot better, particularly since he's divorcing his wife.
Yeah. Sometimes that's just kind of what it takes. We're going to get on with the show again. It's been a great honor to have you here, Philippe. Your stories are so wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank
you. Philippe has flown 40,000 miles to be here, and we're so happy to have him. You're going to hang out for 10 minutes or so in the lobby afterwards to meet and greet people. No formal kind of thing, but if you have any questions that we didn't get to, that'll be the time to ask. And let's enjoy this great film, Mad Dog Morgan.
Thanks very much. Thank you.